I'm excited.
In the
Yeah,
game
me
that I'm
too.
sure Jim is excited to poke the bears,
Don't poke any bears.
stir the pot a little bit.
I'm not going to poke any bears. I'm just going to listen to Muff's breakdown of this wonderful game.
Was a game. Number 6 Oregon comes into State College. White out Saturday night. Here comes Saturday night on NBC. Oregon walks away with a 30-24 victory in 2 overtimes. Oregon was up 17-3 with about 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter, which after a score prompted Dan Lanning to make the throat/gesture that the game was over. But gentlemen, it was not. Penn State storms back to tie the game and take it to overtime. The teams swapped scores in the first overtime, obviously getting the extra points. Nobody went for 2 there. Then Oregon got the ball first and scored in the second overtime. Penn State's Drew Aller, on the first play of Penn State's possession in the second overtime, throws an interception, and Penn State loses the game, which prompted me to roll off a couch, scream some obscenities, and then recollect myself for further discussion.
It was honestly the
proud of
most emotion I've ever seen Muff acutely have. Like, just a reaction. Like, he's usually like,
So I think we need an Alex reincarnation of Muff's reaction falling off the couch.
it literally was like, have you ever seen a fainting goat?
Yes.
He was there and he was watching, and like, there were several jump up and claps, like, normal. And then this one happened. He's just like, he's full roll off the couch. He got up quickly and recovered. He's like, whoa. And then in pure Muff fashion, he was like, well, that sucks.
Yeah, if there was like a video camera on me from Alex's perspective, I would have disappeared.
Yes.
You would have
pretty
heard
much.
me yelling, and then I would have reappeared within 5 seconds.
That checks out.
I basically watched this game by myself, even though there were 3 other people within 10 to 15 feet of me the entire game. Alex for probably 3 to 4 minutes into the game until I woke Alex up and said, Alex, you need to get excited. And Alex had no idea why I needed to get excited, was asleep, recovering from his day drinking in Morgantown.
I will say I woke up the next morning feeling great because I went through my hangover during the Penn State game.
I was with Baltimore guru Keith. Also, his wife was in said room. Keith did make it through the majority of the first half, and then he fell asleep, only being awoken to my outbursts and trying to get Alex up and excited. And his wife was asleep for the majority of the game, but did watch. When I say watch, she was more engaged with me throughout the entire fourth quarter of what my emotional reactions were.
We started the game. I was full in on Penn State. I even helped do the that but okay. I promptly fell asleep minutes, I had a heart attack. And then Muff was really like, he's one of those people where he's really like steady. Like you could tell in the beginning of the fourth quarter he was irritated. He wasn't pleased, but he wasn't like me or Jim at that point would have been like MFing the TV. There would be yelling. I think maybe mine would have been more pouting. Jim's would have been more yelling. But Muff stayed true to the Penn State and to his not letting it completely affect his emotions. He then did get very excited. On Muff's level of excitement, it was like a 10 when Penn State was coming back. Overtime was fun. He kept that energy, and then unfortunately, as quickly as Drew Aller threw the interception was as quickly as Muff fell off the couch. And at that point, all of the energy had left his body. And he basically was like, well, that sucks. And I thought he was over it until his mom rubbed salt in the wound this morning and says, oh, did Penn State win? He just said, no, Penn State did not win. It was very, like, innocent, too. She's, like, an Oliver Steeler garb, like, the nice Steeler necklace, like, ready for the day, like, so happy. And she's like, did Penn State win? And he's like, no, Penn State didn't win.
So I had the Bama game on with the Penn State game. So I was kind of, like, not really with it for the first scoring drive of Penn State. Looked down and I saw, 3-0 Penn State. All right. I felt the whiteout was catching steam. I was like, ugh, how's this going to work? And then I think Oregon had gotten stopped a lot in the first, second quarter. And I was like, man, I'm going to have to listen to Muff's shit about Jimmy Knowles. But that didn't last very long. It seemed like Oregon caught life, and I was like, oh, okay, all right. Third quarter, 10-3 with that touchdown. I was like, oh, okay. Big play, big game Jim Knowles and big game Mr. Franklin. They're going to botch this one. And then another one, 17-3. I was like, ha, this motherfucker's in the bag. And I was like, time to start the clown cartoon. And that's when I went to the designing of James Franklin as a clown. And then Penn State scored. And I was like, uh-oh, have I done this? Is this my fault? Have I jinxed this? So I stopped the clown creating and stopped looking at the screen and started just diving in on the Bama game. Only to look up and see, oh no, it's 17-17. Why? Then I zeroed in on the overtime. That first touchdown from Penn State, I was like, oh, this is it. This is it in the bag. Dunzo. Then when Oregon scored, I was like, okay, all right, okay. And then Oregon scored again and missed the extra point. The Ohio State, the gym, whatever you want to call it, was like, all right, Penn State wins. This is over. There was no doubt in my mind Penn State would score in the whiteout and get that extra point. It was over. And then that interception came, and I was like, oh, time to create the meme. Let's go. So I could see the roller coaster of emotion.
Nate, were you watching this game at all?
I caught the very end of it at a bar in Findlay, Ohio. It was mainly just us and some other people there. But it was of course, on the smaller the TVs behind us. I'm trying to think what other game they had on. Oh, they had the Alabama-Georgia game on the bigger TV. So, but I think everybody was kind of rooting for Penn State at the bar as well.
We'll get into calls of question. We obviously have our guru of officiating with us, so he's had some time to look over two specific plays that we've put into the socials for him to look over. So the first, which happened at a key time in the game and could have potentially created at least some early momentum swing, was a fumble that never was. A fumble of Oregon inside the 5-yard line of Penn State that was retrieved by Penn State, was recovered by Penn State, and they ran it out to around midfield. Quickly went to commercial, and when it came back, it was stated the runner was down prior to the fumble, and that ultimately led to an Oregon touchdown.
So whenever you send that to me, the first question I always have is, what was the call on the field? And you said it was called a fumble, so I'm like, okay, they have to have enough evidence to overturn it. So when I first watched it without even knowing what the call on the field was, I thought he was down. I thought that knee was very close. Usually you would see a little bit of a sliver. I mean, there could have been, but, I mean, especially with grass, I mean, you might have a little bit of spots that are a little higher, a little lower. But to me, I thought his knee was clearly down, so I supported that overturn.
Does the rule state, to your knowledge, that the knee has to make contact with the ground, or is it just touching any part of the ground, which would include grass?
What the hell are you talking about?
Jim, it was so close. And any replay I saw, and I really only saw one good angle, which is the one that I sent Nate, that it did not look like any of the ground was disturbed. It didn't even look to me like there was grass disturbed.
So you're trying to say a blade of grass hitting the knee versus the actual physical dirt that's holding the grass. That's the differential.
I mean, no, it's not that I'm aware of. But again, when I looked at, like you said, it wasn't like knee was definitely left a divot in the ground or anything like that. But from that angle, I'm like, okay, I think to me that's clear that knee touches the ground. It wasn't forceful into the ground, but I think it was enough that you don't want to have a cheap turnover there when it's that close.
Jim, that was differentiating because I have no idea what the rule states.
I just want to make sure that you're applying golf logic to football here.
What's the golf logic?
Was the ground disturbed?
I mean, that's obviously would be a clear indicator that the knee touched the ground, and we didn't have, I would say, a clear indicator that the knee touched the ground aside from a view that made it appear as though it touched the grass, which is why I want to know if there's specific otherwise.
I'm not even making fun of you. I think it's interesting that it's not in the rules. That's a very good point. I think
I'll have to
Muffy
look
found a
up the
hole.
exact lingo to see what it says.
Yeah. So we move on to the second, which really, in a game of this magnitude, to only truly have 2 questionable calls, in my estimation, is not the worst thing that you can have in a game like this. Which was an overtime, which was an initial targeting call on Penn State.
No, wait, let's clarify this. I'm going to let you go with that, but let's clarify. Lanning asked for it to be looked at, in my opinion. He pointed to the referee, points to his head, says that's targeting, nothing happened, and all of a sudden we're reviewing it in the booth.
Right. So, Alex, I want you now to take the group through, and any listeners, what I said as soon as that play ended.
That's not targeting. That's not targeting.
I said, I think the quote was, please don't be targeting, please don't be targeting. Because in real time...
You're right. You're right. It was, please don't be targeting.
You're asking him to verify something when he's drunk. That's...
At this point, Alex was sort of... This was late.
Yeah, at this point, we were good. I didn't... So, yes, you're right. And I really, honestly, when it first happened, didn't think it was targeting. When he said, please don't be targeting, I was like, it's not. That was my thought. And then I was like, oh, we're actually looking at this. And then whenever Dan Lanning was going like this, I actually thought he was just like, come on, get tough. And I was like, oh, no, he's asking for a targeting call.
And there was a lot of discussion about hairline, crowns of helmets. And
This is where I got mad.
Right. Hairline, crowns
I initially didn't think it was targeting. The guy was going down.
Yeah.
And so I was like, yeah, this is stupid. And then I saw what Lanning did, and I was like, number one, as an Ohio State fan, Lanning is the master manipulator of the rule book. And then they said hairline and crown, and that's where I was like, all right, Nate. I'm going to make sure I bring this back up to Nate. Where on the helmet did they teach referees, good, bad, good, bad? And, is there a point?
If there is, I have not been instructed of so.
Okay.
When I watched it, I'm like, okay, you definitely have helmet to helmet, so, the guy's clearly going down. If anything, I think if they wanted to foul to stick, they could have called unnecessary roughness with targeting. So even if the targeting gets overturned, the UNR still stays. Yeah, because they even have that now where if you target or get called for a targeting foul on the passer, you'll hear a lot of it now, roughing the passer with targeting. So even if the targeting gets overturned, you still have the roughing the passer foul.
I believe all of that was incidental. I just thought that
again,
was a bang
we're not
play.
rolling on intent. On that.
No, I'm saying okay, Nate, but
I'm
then
not
you
going to go up to him and go,
did you have unnecessary roughness without intent?
Say it again.
You can have unnecessary roughness without intent. Okay. So then let's go back to the hairline crown thing. Is that a thing?
Not to my knowledge. I don't recall seeing the word hairline anywhere. The big thing is there wasn't an indicator is what they call it. He didn't launch at all or severely duck his head, completely put his head down.
Bullshit.
I thought it was bullshit, Jim. What is bullshit?
His head was down.
It's not Jim, do you know what the crown is? It is the top of your helmet, not your face mask.
But his head he was looking at dirt.
But his crown is not what hit.
And that's where the referee on the television was like, crown and hairline, crown and hairline.
And hairline to me was pretty much saying face mask. Hairline to me was face mask. Yeah.
A lot of guys
we're judging targeting on the angle of the guy's neck when he comes at you.
Yeah. It's like an indicator. Does he launch or does he duck his head? Okay, does he really go like that to show you the top of his head? In that situation, the more replays you saw, he just ducked his head down a little bit, but it wasn't severe enough to warrant it. But I thought in that case, again, if you just go UNR with targeting, that guy was going down on the ground. That guy did not need to hit him. He was tackled.
It was a good hit.
No, because you're probably not going to get that with it being a live ball. Usually when you get unnecessary roughness, it's going to be after the play is over.
And they did say in the broadcast, they said he had established himself as a runner, so a lot of those types of things.
Sure to clarify that right off the jump.
Right. So that was good to hear that discussion. So these two plays for me, would have been amazing if this was an ACC game to hear the discussion.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And Alex and I on Friday got to listen to some of that with the Florida State-Virginia game, and I was like, oh, this is the first time I've actually heard this, and I kind of like it.
Yeah, it was cool.
Cool. I'm sorry I fell asleep for that. Damn.
My general thoughts on, we'll say obviously this is a biased lean towards why Penn State was not successful and not victorious. So, overall, yes, Oregon significantly outscored Penn State in yards, but if we're looking in regulation, those yards did not necessarily equate to points. So, bend not break was just fine in this game, right? Oregon was moving the ball throughout the game, but was not translating it into points. They had one missed field goal, and it wasn't like they turned the ball over a bunch either. So I am okay with the defensive strategy overall, right? Once you get into overtime, it's all bets off for me. Like, you just got to figure it out. Offensively, specifically in the first half, and then towards the end of the third quarter for Penn State, we started to see it different. The play calling initially was incredibly conservative and looked to me like every Penn State big game strategy of the Franklin era, right? We are going to run option handoffs, some jet sweeps, and we're just trying to look underneath and catch some people running crossing routes, which were not open. Drew Aller, in the first 2.5 to 3 quarters of the game, was just trying to find somebody to throw it in the direction of, because not only was he under duress, but not many receivers were open.
Your defensive take is, ridiculous. I'm sorry. I love you. Ridiculous. You paid Jim Knowles money to steal him away from Ohio State because Ohio State didn't respect him. That's a national championship winning defensive coordinator who gave up 424 yards, 20 first downs. Oregon was 5 of 7 on fourth down, 0 forced sacks, 0 forced turnover. I get the bend not break, but we had bend not break for the last 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. You paid money for this. I didn't see anything change. This wasn't a difference. This wasn't a different Penn State. This looked like the same Penn State of the same Penn State. Like, they'll be there. They can take a punch to the face, but ultimately, to switch gears to your offense, I agree with your take on the offense. But you paid money to shore up that defense. That did not look good. I think it's bad for what you paid for. It's not a good return on your investment.
The last play, Alex can attest, shortly after my emotional 5-second outburst, and I came back to play. I came back to being me. I said out loud, this is a poor play design. You overloaded the short side of the field with an incredibly fast defense, and you run a wheel route for a running back. Was it running back? Whoever it was. I don't know if somebody that was in the slot or coming out of the back. It was in the slot. I think it was Trevor Pena. You run a wheel route for somebody to the short side of field, and you didn't overload it to the other side. So you have all of these bodies, and you have a defensive back who is able to key on everything that's going on that side of the field. Drew Aller, even if he made a perfect throw, it was going to get broken up, or it was going to be just outside of reach of that receiver. So, yes, he made the throw. Yes, it was picked off. Why are we not doing something different? What worked in the fourth quarter and in the first overtime, and trying to get a little too cute. So, the Kotelneck would be being a little too cute, in my opinion.
Like you said, to stick to what has worked the entire game. Like, why are you getting away from your identity? Like, if it hasn't been there all game, you threw for 100 and some yards. Why are you trying to chuck the ball over the yard now? Like, it's not your MO. It's not what got you there. It's not what's going to get you there. Stick to what you know.
I agree, and I was fully with you that the last play of the game. I mean, it was just a bad call. It was just, I don't know. I agree with you. Too cute. While you're doing that risky play in a time like that, not good. Too cramped.
I don't really have much to debate on it. I think that was silly.
The next thing,
Or Franklin.
Franklin, Oregon, the national picture as well as the Big Ten picture. So initially going to slant this towards the Penn State situation as the loser, but you can parlay that into, using the betting terms here, what does this mean for Oregon? What does it mean to the Big Ten? And what does it mean to the national picture, especially looking ahead as much as we can to playoff implications? What does this mean for Penn State? What does this speak to, which has already been spoken to in James Franklin and Drew Aller? And what do we think the big picture is here? Alex.
I think that Penn State, I think they're in the playoff conversation with 2 losses if other things help. So I think that on their own, I would be nervous if they lose to Ohio State too. I think that their goal now has to be win the games they need to win. They're supposed to win and come out and try to upset Ohio State. James Franklin, I don't know. I don't think he's a bad coach, but like, what is this juju on him that he can't win one of these games? I'm with you. Like, I get it and I see it, but I don't know. At what point do you make a change? I don't know. I feel very wishy-washy on that. I can see both sides, but I think that now Penn State moving forward just needs to focus on winning what they need to win and beating Ohio State.
I'm with Alex. I mean, how many times is the same thing just going to continually happen? Like, you get all the hype up here, and then it's like you can't win the big one. Like, I was just looking at the schedule. You got Ohio State in a couple weeks, and then you got IU right after that. So, I mean, if you lose one, if not 2 of those games, if you lose both, you're done. But again, it comes down to the fact, like, why can't we win the big game? I want to say I found it somewhere, but still, I mean, as we know, Franklin's record speaks for itself in those games. It's like what are we going to do to get over this hump? It's like, are we cursed, or is it coaching? Is it just poor execution? Is it a combination of everything? Like, I just think there's no answer right now.
Penn State, Ohio State just got a lot more serious for Penn State. And probably Ohio State, because if Penn State beats Ohio State, then it's Ohio State, Oregon running it back, right? So in terms of down the road, I think the Penn State game against Ohio State's huge. But we say all that, I think that Indiana is no joke, like as Nate said. I think this opened the door for a lot of teams nationally that the door was shut on. Your Indianas, your Ole Miss, your Texas A&M, it all kind of just, Penn State's not there. In terms of James Franklin, I mean, the record's there. He's 2-21 in the big games. Their strength of schedule going into this game, they were ranked 136 of 136. Like, you had all the stars aligned. You had your whiteout. You had it all. Like, it was easy for you. As a fan base who's had a coach who like that has a hump or kryptonite in that Michigan game, this isn't just like one game. If they beat Oregon and lost to Ohio State, I'd be like, we are your Michigan. I get it. But you lost to Oregon. I think his seat needs to get hot. I think it needs to get hot quick, especially if I gave all that money and I'm in the NIL. We were talking in the summer, beginning of the summer, Penn State was like, they got the bag. And now it's, what are you going to do with it, James Franklin? In terms of Aller, he's just a kid playing ball. Like, I can't hate the kid for that interception. I thought he had some really bright spots in that game. And I hated it. I did not want him to look so good. But he's just a kid playing ball. Is he an NFL prototype? I don't know. But he's a good quarterback.
So Penn State, right, is a program, obviously under the Franklin era, because that's what we're talking about now. Right now, the Penn State program is synonymous with James Franklin. As everyone has said, their records speak for themselves. With Drew Aller, putting them all together in that way, there's nothing that he did in that game that makes me like upset. Right? There's nothing that makes me like, oh my God, Drew Aller lost this game. No, he threw the interception on the final play, which people will point to, but you can also point to they are not in that spot without his play in the fourth quarter. right? Without him pulling the ball in a few plays, running down the field, without him making some big throws, while he did miss multiple open receivers throughout the game, he also made some off-script plays early in the game that actually helped them retain some field position and move forward. If we're looking at that James Franklin, Drew Aller relationship, and I'm only going to make this comparison to you, Jim, because of some of the issue you had after Ohio State lost to the Michigan most recently. Ryan Day on the sidelines, watching everything unfold, not really getting in the mix. To James Franklin's credit, the first person he went to after that was Drew Aller, gave him a little punch on the chest and said, "Keep your head up," and then he went about his business. So at least there was that exchange, right?
Yeah, for sure.
For all of the things you can say bad about James Franklin, I don't think you could say he does not have the players back and is not willing to be their support. It just sucks that he has to be their support when they lose these games. So the national picture, I think, Jim, you said it in a roundabout way. A 2-loss Penn State team likely still gets into the playoff, right? Because that means they have, unless the loss is to somebody other than Ohio State or Indiana, right? And even then they have 2 wins against some top teams. They still sneak in, make their way in just based on what their strength of schedule will be after this weekend and weeks forward. 3 losses, they're out, and I don't think I could make a case otherwise. The national picture, agree with Jim. We opened the doors for some people to feel better about their chances with the thought that Penn State could be a 3-loss team. We also are going to get into the rest of the college football slate and how many teams that people had propped up and put on a pedestal were now at least put down a peg, if not taken off of that pedestal.
I have 2 points. One, you guys got to get a quarterback developer. You got to get a whisperer on the staff. 2, October 11th, Indiana versus Oregon is the, to me, should be the game. Like, that's the game all eyes should be on. Because Indiana beats Oregon, everything's on its head, right? Because it all gets kerfuffled.
Right, and especially if Penn State beats Indiana later.
Right, it's all, the door's back to wide open again. So that's my other thought, is like October 11th, I want to see that game.
Good. And my final thought on this is Dan Lanning succeeded where James Franklin has not been able to succeed in the past. Dan Lanning won the big game earlier in his career.
Dan Lanning is the man. Like, Oregon just needs to roll up a Brinks truck every day to his house.
I mean, that going for it that many times on 4th down, granted, most of them were within 2 or 3 yards. Like, that took some balls and some guts early in the game to stay committed to going on a 4th down every time.
I honestly think he might have a screw loose.
Well, post-game. Yeah. I mean, he's definitely a player's coach and an excitable guy. So it works. It's working now. So I don't think there's any reason to change it.